Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly Live for the week ending September 17th, 2023. I'm Peggy Kay, coming to you today from the gloomy San Francisco Bay Area. Thank you so much. If you're here live, I'd love to hear what you think about this week's updates, and if you're willing to share where you're coming from today. Big shout out to Diego, who gave me a super chat. Thank you so much. He says, thank you for helping me with the product expert community. Diego's one of the newest product experts for Google Chat and Google Meet. So congrats, Diego. It's great to see it. All right, today I've got updates for you from WordPress, from Adobe, from Tumblr, all kinds of different things today. If you blog, if you make videos, I think you'll find something of interest. Also, just as a reminder, I have a weekly newsletter. You can get the week's tips and updates all in your email inbox once a week. There's a QR code on the screen. You can use that to subscribe. Thank you so much for those of you who have already subscribed to the weekly newsletter. I also wanted to mention that immediately after today's live discussion, I'll be over on Twitter, X, to host a Twitter chat, or I guess you call it an X chat now. We're going to be talking about encryption and messaging. And you don't require any expertise. I don't have any expertise. We're just going to talk about whether that's important to you, what you think of it, maybe the sort of discussion around encryption. So that is what we're doing today. All right, let's get started. All right. So the first thing I wanted to mention are a couple Googly updates. I know a lot of you out there use Google products for communications and services and so forth. The first update is kind of a fun one. Google says that if you have added your birth date to your Google profile and made it so that it's public, so others can see it, now, on your birthday, if someone hovers over your name in Gmail, contacts, calendar, Google Chat, and so forth, they'll see this cute birthday balloon animation. So that's a lot of fun. You can check to see if your birthday's public by going to myaccount.google.com/profile. That's where you'll find your Google profile settings. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, just really briefly, is if you use Google Chat, there is a brand new splash screen. It's very welcoming. The old screen was sort of geometric, abstract. This is friendly people. And I'll note that if you look at that, you'll see over on the right-hand side that you have the option to add apps. These apps add functionality to your Google Chat. Previously, they were for Google Workspace only. Now they seem to be available to everyone. And so if you click that, you can just see really quickly, you'll see a whole bunch of different apps that you can add to a space. For example, there's Google Meet and Google Drive. There's a bunch of third-party tools you can add, including polls. There's Giphy if you want more GIF options. So if you use Google Chat, I suggest you check that out. All right, let's get started with this week's updates specifically for creators. The first thing I wanted to mention is an update to AdSense for content. Now, this is AdSense if you have your own website. This is not for AdSense for YouTube. If you have AdSense for YouTube, you don't need to add your own website. You can ignore all this. But the update on AdSense is that they are going to more quickly verify website ownership. So when you add a website to your AdSense account sites list, they will verify that it's your site more quickly. There's a new option for verifying your site by adding a meta tag that allows you to verify your site without having to place ad code on the main homepage of your site. AdSense is always going to check the main homepage, make sure that you own it. But now you don't have to place ad code. You can put this verification tag instead. And there's also improvements to ads text. The ads text file is something that you add to your site that tells systems which advertising platforms you allow. So you need to add that for AdSense. It's actually not mandatory for AdSense, but strongly, strongly recommended. If you haven't done it, you're probably going to see a big notice banner in your AdSense account reminding you to do that. The improvement they've added is a note when the ads text file was last checked. So if there's a problem with it, a technical problem with the way you've implemented it, you can see when it was checked last. It can take some time for AdSense to review it, especially if your site doesn't have a lot of traffic. There's also a new button that you can say, review it now. So if you're having trouble with the ads text file for your website, this should make it a little bit easier to manage. All righty. The next thing I wanted to talk about today is also for bloggers. Give me a second here. All right, the next update I wanted to share is an update from WordPress. You can install the ActivityPub plugin, which was acquired by Automatic, the parent company of WordPress, for development. And that lets you federate your WordPress blog with a lot of sites in the Fediverse, like Mastodon. This plugin is currently available for self-hosted WordPress, and they say it will soon be available for blogs hosted on WordPress.com. And just to give a quick description, the idea is that if you implement the ActivityPub plugin for your blog, people on Mastodon, for example, can follow your blog the way they do any other Mastodon profile. If someone comments on the post they see in Mastodon, that becomes a comment on your blog. So it's a way for people to follow, and you don't lose anything the way you do when you share a link to your blog posts. That splits up the conversation into multiple places. This means if you share to the Fediverse with the ActivityPub plugin, the comments then go to your blog. So I think this is kind of an interesting development. I really like the idea of federation and being able to interact on various platforms without having to share links the way you do on social media usually. All right, let me just take a second to welcome everyone who is here live. I see Jolyn and Craig and Andrew and Diego. Thank you so much for joining me live today. I'd love to hear what you think of this week's updates. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was Adobe Firefly. Adobe Firefly is Adobe's generative AI image creator. You put in text prompts and you get out generated images that you can modify. It has been in beta for a while until this week. So this week, Firefly is no longer in beta, and that means you have to pay if you're going to use it regularly. You can use it for free still, but there are limits. So just a quick look at the plans Adobe is offering. You can see that for free, you get 25 monthly generative credits, or you can get premium where you get 100 monthly generative credits, Adobe fonts, and no watermarks on the images generated by Firefly. There are also generative credits included in Adobe's other creative plans. So if you're already subscribing to get Photoshop or Adobe Premiere and so forth, it's probably included in that Creative Cloud plan. And you should check the Adobe website for details. I wanted to mention that generative credits, which is what you pay for, are defined pretty clearly in Adobe's Help Center. A generative credit provides priority processing of generative AI content across features powered by Firefly in the applications you're entitled to. They reset each month, and examples of actions where you're debited a generative credit is selecting Generate in text effects, selecting More in generative fill. There's a whole list of things that count as credits, that don't count as credits. If you use text effects, those are 0 credits until November. So if you're using Adobe Firefly, keep that in mind that there may be some limits. I think if you go over the credits, you might actually still be able to use it, but it will be much slower or lower resolution. So there are limits, but you can still use it for free. The other announcement from Adobe this week is that there are AI tools in a lot of their other offerings, including Adobe Premiere Pro, the video editor. This is kind of neat, I think. Their text-based editing is getting a major update with automatic filler word detection. A filler word is like when you go, I have filler words all the time. The idea with text-based editing is that the editor has the transcript, essentially. It detects every time you put in a filler word, like and then you can delete all those. And the text-based editing, if you delete part of the text, then it deletes that part of the video as well. So you're actually editing the video by editing the text, and the new AI systems can automatically detect the filler words. The other AI-based feature is the ability to magically, as they say, automatically remove noise from voice recordings with a single click. It says you can use the AI to make poorly recorded dialogue sound as if it was recorded in a professional studio. And then there are a number of other updates coming to Premiere Pro as well. So if you're using Premiere Pro, which is really a professional level video editor, these are some great updates to improve the quality of the audio of your video. I could probably use something like that, but I'm not willing to pay for Premiere Pro. So I will stick with my only so-so audio. There are also a couple of features that are sort of experimental on other social platforms that I wanted to mention that I thought were kind of interesting. The first one I wanted to mention is an update on Pinterest. Pinterest this past week had its big announcements for advertisers. So that's what this is aimed at. But this is actually a new user tool that's in development right now. It's creating what they call collages. So the idea is you can have a pin and people can cut out part of the pin and then make a collage from it. So they are promoting it as a way to put together an outfit. For example, you could cut out the shoes and the hat and so forth, or like in the image, in the example, decorate your room. The pitch to advertisers for this is to suggest that companies upload their catalogs to Pinterest so people can make collages from them. So this is for clothing companies. Anyone who sells goods, upload those to Pinterest, and then people can start making collages and promote your content. The other interesting thing that's being tested that I wanted to mention is on Tumblr. There are Tumblr Labs, which is for experimental features, and they are testing something they call collections. Everybody has collections of various kinds. In this case, you can curate a collection of other Tumblr feeds, and they are asking for feedback from the Tumblr community about what they would like to see, how they would like this to work. So it's not set in stone right now. If you're interested, you should check out my latest newsletter. There's a link to the page where you can go and provide some feedback. Just as an example of what they're thinking of, they have a collection of Tumblr's official blogs. So they've collected all of Tumblr's blogs in one place. You can see all the various official blogs there. And then you just have a single feed with content from all of those blogs. I think this is a really interesting step. Discovery is often the hardest part of these platforms, where people are posting tons of content, and there's a tricky aspect trying to make sure that people who might be interested can see that content. People get upset by algorithmic feeds, but that's one way people can find things they're interested in. These collections seem to be another good way to do it. So you could put together a collection of blogs who all share, I don't know, Pokemon art, and there would be just one feed. That would let people who are interested in that view the collection and find new Tumblr blogs to follow. Diego asks, where is the Twitter chat? I'm glad you asked that. So you can follow me on Twitter. I am at PeggyKTC, the same as my handle here on YouTube. You can also follow the OnEBoardChat hashtag. There's a QR code on the screen right now. if you follow that, it should open the hashtag search that shows the latest posts using that hashtag. So the idea with the Twitter chat is, as the host, I post some questions for people to discuss with that hashtag. And then you can respond to those questions and respond to what other people responded and so forth. I'm hoping some people are interested. We have a new topic every week. We usually chat about something related to content creation or collaboration or online tools, things like that. So I hope some of you can join me over on, I should say, X rather than Twitter. I'm not sure I will ever get used to the new name. So those are this week's main updates. I wanted to finish with a kind of fun thing to try. At least I think it's fun. Let me see. So some of you may be familiar with Emoji Kitchen. Emoji Kitchen is sort of a side project Google is doing where you can mash together different emojis to make new ones. Now it's available in Google Search. If you just do a search for Emoji Kitchen, you should see the box I have here come up. Click Good Cooking. And then you can combine various emojis. The example I have here is a goat and the pineapple. So you get a goat eating a pineapple. There's all kinds of fun things you can do. You can have a clown goat, or you can change the first one, which is a pixel goat, pixel clown, and so forth. I like to play with it. And then when you have something that you like, you can click the copy button and it will copy the image. You can paste it in wherever you like. So that's the fun thing to do this week. The other interesting thing to try on a more serious note is the Data Commons. This is another project by Google. They have access to a bunch of government level databases. We're talking about census databases, economic databases, and so forth. They have added the option to ask questions using this natural language. So you can explore all this data for free at datacommons.org. And you can see a bunch of examples. So for example, if you look at some of the health data, what are the leading causes of death in the US? And then you can get a whole bunch of different sliced and diced data by location. The data is mostly US data, but there are international databases as well. So if you're interested in economics and health, agriculture, housing, those sorts of topics, you might go to Data Commons and play with the databases they have. You can ask just generic questions now, where you ask something like, what is the rate of diabetes in different California counties? Or you can say, what are the greenhouse gas emissions in Europe? And then it will generate the nicely formatted data for you to look at. So those are this week's updates. Thank you so much for joining me live. I always appreciate everybody in the chat. And I will see you all next week, maybe over on Twitter in 5 minutes. But if not that, I'll see you next week